G'day, mate. Welcome to Friday Facts 351 Beacon redesign, and we have a simplified mojo mixing, right?
Sure, yes.
Yes.
That's
So
something.
Yeah. So we're going to start off...
You got the thing you wanted.
Yeah, what?
Or is it things Stinson wanted?
Okay, so we'll get to fluid design, but I absolutely despised this edition. And...
The beacons?
Nah, the fluids. The you can't mix fluids. I despised it.
Yeah. We all... It depends on how you build. Because if you're one who starts with the pipes and then builds the machines, then you got a problem. Whereas if you do it the other way around, usually you're fine.
Yeah, but there are times when you need to mix fluid. Anyway, we'll get to that. We'll start with bacons. Okay, bacons were missing. They weren't part of the graphic overhaul, I guess you could call it, that happened last couple of weeks.
Yeah, they didn't come with the original graphic overhaul.
Yep.
When we saw them, the big red towers, and there was a whole FFF devoted to them.
A whole
previous one.
Big red pointy tower things with lightning spikes, and it was not well received by the community, I think is the polite way of putting it.
Yeah, there was just something that always looked off about it. It just was very in your face. It was very visually aggressive, which I believe is the term.
Super in your face. And yes, it was big, it was red, it was too tall, the spike was too big. The big yellow circle thing, which was just yellow, it turned out, didn't do any magic change of colors for different module types. Nobody liked it. Nobody liked it at all. So they do say the red tower design itself is very impressive, which gave so many plus points that we didn't focus enough on it. The fact that it took up too much visual attention. In this case, this happens because the aggressive red color, the big contrasty yellow eye-like circle, and the anti-big quite tall, and the electric beam animation. So basically everything I just said. Nobody liked it.
Yeah, on its own, it was really impressive. But then when you put it in game, it becomes its own set piece that conflicts with everything.
Yeah, if they can release the graphics and we can put them outside our base as Tesla towers, done. So gonna have one of them.
That would look really good in that.
Yeah, but in the middle of the base everywhere, because that's what happens with beacons. Beacons are one of those things that either don't exist or your base is carpeted with them.
It's usually an all or none type deal.
So the devs were left with three options. Either update the original design, adjust the red tower, or start a new redesign, which is what this Friday Facts is all about, the redesign. They also say the beacon is a very special entity. We just covered this. It's either nowhere or everywhere. As the red tower, most of the top part would have to be removed, which is almost a complete redesign anyway. But parts of the hole that they made, they could recycle for a new version. So they started a new redesign with a design goal of the beacon, trying to take much less attention. So we have the start of the redesign process. So, for everything, they generally respect the idea of the height, in the sense that the higher something is, the brighter it usually looks. The less important the background is usually darker, whilst the foreground entities is usually brighter. The best example I can give for this is a inserter. The three legs are always a darker colour than the actual army is on top. It's a couple of shades lighter of yellow, blue, red, whatever colour it happens to be. So they did have originally with the previous beacons, they did put it in a giant hole to give it the impression of it being taller than it really was, and not take up too much, pixel height, and block too many entities behind it. So they chose.
Yeah, and that was one of the problems with the original beacon, was it does obstruct a lot of what's going on behind.
Yeah, it takes up like half a tile at least, depending on where the spinny things are, half a tile to a whole tile. And there are times you just cannot see behind it, which is sometimes really frustrating. Especially if you're trying to get, power poles or a power wire or something behind a beacon. It can be really frustrating to see what's exactly going on. So what they decided is they could put the whole beacon in a whole entity and therefore make it generally darker and less noticeable. That way they could change the idea from a tower to an underground electronic powerful entity and try to explain the effect being transmitted by underground cables. So they still want to have some sort of concept of the beacon transmitting its magical properties to the assemblers, no longer through the airwaves and lightning spikes, but through underground cables, which I guess is okay. I don't know.
It's an interesting idea. It's a good idea. It's whether or not it actually permeates through.
Well, I think the biggest thing with Factorio is because there's no new player experience or campaign, there's no real lore around the game. So
yeah,
it's funny that they try and have lore for just this part, but then big fundamental elements of like, why are you on the planet? Why do you have to launch a satellite to get off? Which you no longer have to launch a satellite, but that's besides the point. Like that's all left out in the open. So yeah, so they do mention. Do notice a lot of the meshes in the model are coming from Albert's redesign, which is really helpful to get new redesign done in a reasonable amount of time. And I've looked at the old beacon, and I don't see, maybe it's just me, but I don't see anything from the old beacon in the new one.
In the redesign.
The redesign hole in the ground.
The so I don't know if you spotted it yet. It looks like a sphincter.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say that. I wasn't going to say that, but yes.
I already had posted on Reddit.
Yeah. Trust Reddit. Yeah, look, this is the hole where all the waste of the factory goes. That's the answer. That's the answer.
Sure. Well, waste doesn't go into sphincters.
I know.
Let's not go down there.
So the beacon is generally less saturated than any of their previous designs, which makes it less intense and makes it fit better in the typical habitat of concrete tiles, though it looks just fine on more natural terrain as well. Which brings me to a question, Mojo. Your factories, at the time you get beacons, are you like one of these people that's like 100% concrete everywhere, or you still building on whatever natural tiles are out there, or what? Because
normally I'm still grass these days, or whatever's underneath, and then usually it's paths for walking faster around.
Yeah, see, I've realized that it's like no. When I'm finished with a section of the factory, so like bacons and the assemblers and everything go down the natural tiles. When I'm done with an area entirely, possibly I'll concrete it. But before that, I just don't bother anymore. Which is funny, because if we go back like 2-3 years in the Grand Factorio theme of things, back then it was like, no, everything had to be concreted. Everything.
The difference in pollution spread is phenomenal, and you really don't want to be concreting everything. If you've got pollution on, that is.
Yeah. Pollution just affects the biters. It's fine. They stay at arm's reach behind 3 layers of lasers. Generally. But
when I actually pulled up all of the concrete that was on my mega base at the time, and it cut the spread back by a third.
Yeah.
Pollution barely makes it to the fringes now.
Yeah, concrete makes a big difference.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
But yeah, it's just one of those things that they mention here, and I'm like, I don't really concrete things anymore. Like I do on a community map because we just don't care.
Yeah, and if the map's finite, then also don't care. But,
yeah.
The energy and effort expended doesn't really pay off.
Yeah, it does with paths. Paths still pay off.
Oh yeah, with paths definitely. That extra speed boost, but you're not going to need a speed boost in between a big array of beacons.
Yeah, so yeah, just one of those things I noticed. Anyway, so the submerged works well in making the beacons take way less attention from the producer entities, and there are it doesn't look like a beacon on first sight. That was the other problem. So as a side effect, the beacon starts looking very top down without combating their perspective problems, because Factorio has a perspective problem right from square one. This offset, I don't know, do you remember what their official name for it was?
was actually trying to think. I think part of the thing is also calling it a beacon. That might not be the best name for it.
Probably better than Factorio Sphincter. But anyway, so yeah, the beacon starts looking very top down without combating our perspective. Though would probably be though that would probably be possible with a probably be possible to adjust by changing the design significantly. So if they wanted to redesign it, they could probably fix that and keep the sphincter look, or they put a tiny little itty bitty tower on top, which I don't mind, honestly. And it also explains how the effect is transmitted. Slim and lightweight tower, though, without taking up too much attention. And then it comes onto these two black squares. So we have the up behind the tower and in front of the tower. They're actually module slots. So the beacons now dynamically visualizes the modules inside. This is conceptually questionable, as we definitely don't want to start a precedent of adding visual module slots to every entity, but the beacon has no use other than modules, so we think it's an acceptable exception.
Yeah, it's funny. That's exactly what I thought. As soon as I saw them, I was like, that's a dangerous precedent. Now everyone's going to want to...
Yeah, look. Every single assembler has 4 corners on the top of the building. You could whack a module on each one of those corners, just flatten them out a little bit. It'd be brilliant.
It also occurred to me, I thought of it after that a little bit after that an assembly machine, oil refinery, chemical plant, all that, those are actual buildings where you could argue the module sits inside. Is there a big enough building the module could be inside? Whereas the beacon, because its profile is so low, there's nowhere else for it to go.
You could, but they look pretty on the outside. And I can probably see somebody's already trying to cook up a mod concept where
probably
all the entities are changed to have a spot to put modules on the outside, which, again, I probably would turn on, to be honest. As long as they could alter the alt view so it didn't show the module slots as well, or the module icons on the assembly machine or whatever it happened to be as well, I'd probably install, because modules are one of those things that, you know, after they're on every building, I don't need that information anymore, really. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm happy that the modules are shown on the beacons or not. It's one of those things, I guess time will tell. Much like fluid mixing, time will tell, and turns out I hate the thing. But yeah, the modules do take a bit more attention back, but also remove some. With the modules always visible, they could remove the alt view from beacons. This means whenever you toggle alt mode on, you're seeing the overlay change on the producer entities. And then we have a nice, pretty slider bar here, which, okay, first off, a beacons, I guess, is one of those things I just stopped paying attention to. Whenever I look at a factory, I'm just like, that's a beacon. I just ignore it outright. And
you sort of tune out to it after a while.
Yeah, and I do have to admit, the fact that it's kept in the mostly brown, coppery look with the new ones, I'm still doing that to a certain amount and ignoring them. By the same token, the modules, in a stock beacon, the only 2 modules you can put in there are speed and efficiency. That's the other one.
You can put it, but there's no reason to, because your end result is worse than what you started.
You use more power to run the beacon to transmit the efficiency to the surrounding machines.
Yeah, you use more. I can't remember how much. It's not insignificant, too.
I think there might be an exception if you put down 1 beacon and you can make it overlap like 4 machines all running productivity modules or something.
No, it always costs more. I've checked.
Oh, okay. I thought there was some weird exception where if you got enough overlap, it actually became, somewhat of a power saving.
No vanilla entity, like the rocket silo, I think is the closest. The more effects you can apply to one, the closer it does to breaking even.
No, I was thinking like 1 beacon covering multiple assemblers. That would surely break even quicker.
No, Still costs
okay.
more.
Okay. Well, there you go. Look, there are only 2 modules you can put in things in beacons, and I don't know. I don't know about the modules being shown. I do want to say, and it might lead to a redesign, I really wish both the modules were shown on the front, rather than one on the front and one on the back.
Yeah, they're kind of hidden currently. Probably the only, I like the new beacon design. I like this one. The Sphencton, I guess we...
Yep.
It's the Sphencton now. The only thing is it does contribute back to the game being the brown. That's my only
Beacons were
caveat
brown.
with it.
The beacons were brown to start with.
They were, yeah.
And I'm
So there's
guessing
nothing new there.
It's less brown because
It's a little less brown, yeah. Probably the biggest change is that the medium power poles in that split image are much more
what?
they're much more dominant visually.
They are. They
and all
are.
the wires.
And
because
all the wires.
It shows you how much the beacons were dominating that scene.
Yeah, look,
The old ones.
I normally power poles don't bother me, especially and the wires, but I'm seeing this little section, like the second row in, and the power wires crossing against everything, and it's just it's frustrating me. It's frustrating me, and not enough that I go through and clean them up manually. No way. But yeah, the enough that I might install one of those. What is it? The power line comb mod or whatever it is, and swing that over the area. Probably.
That or use substations and not be a troglodyte that uses medium power.
Even then, substations do weird things sometimes. But
They can, yes, but
yeah.
they're better than medium power poles.
Yeah.
I might be biased.
Have a build that actually supports substations, because this build does not support substations. Anyway, yeah. So we got a new beacon design. Yeah.
It's good. It's overall it's an improvement on the other one. I think the Sphencton is a nice upgrade.
You've ruined my bacon forever. Thanks, Mojo. Thanks, Mojo.
Bacon?
Yeah.
Now you associate bacon with Sphincter.
Yeah. Thanks. If it helps at all, it's brunch time, and I was about to go have bacon and eggs for breakfast. Anyway.
Well, that'll plug up your Sphincton.
Okay, so, yes, so the alt overlay doesn't really, doesn't show the module slots or the modules on the beacons anymore because they're now baked in, but it can be re-enabled by mods. The module slots are procedurally tinted, so if a mod adds custom modules, it only needs to specify the tints at the definition of the module items without touching the beacon at all. And then we have this zoomed in build of beacons with the assemblers with the alt mode off. And I don't know, it's one of those things, like, I don't run around the factory looking at beacons this zoomed in. So
yeah, unless you're actually building, you don't normally see it.
Yeah. So I don't know. So they also say it's worth mentioning, nope. Yes, so they say the same as we've already said, that beacons, generally at the time you get beacons, you're so zoomed out anyway, they can afford to be lower res for a much longer time. But the tower also has a subtle glow animation that explains the effect transmission when zoomed in, whilst being almost invisible while zoomed out, trying to balance the balance being interesting when zoomed in and not disruptive when zoomed out. The glow effect is also tinted by the color defined by the module lights. In fact, it averages the color of the 2 different modules that are in the beacon, which isn't very useful for base game, but for some mods it can make some nice detail. And now I want to have purple modules. I don't know why, I just want to have purple light going up the Sphincter module beacon thing. Yeah.
What kind of modules would they be?
I don't know, but brown is definitely banned. Anyway, on to fluids. They do plan to have the release for the beacons next week, and we do have a little... what would that be? That would be the icon for the inventory item. At the same time, can we just add a massive request for beacons? Can they please stack in higher than amounts of 10? Because...
Oh, yeah, that is actually really annoying.
Like... You go get beacons, and one assembler, even if you're doing an 8 beacon setup, you're using on average 5-6 per assembler, which means one assembler, assembler stacked to 50, but then I need 250 beacons plus to match that. So I have one stack of assemblers and then 25 stacks of beacons.
If you're doing a full beacon, it's one stack of beacons per assembler.
It is. So if you go up to, what is it? It's 12 beacons normally per assembler, and it averages out to, I think it's about 11 or 10.
Because they're beacon sharing. Like one shares with 4, most of them share with 2.
Yeah,
edge cases.
Yeah, there's a lot of beacon sharing going around, but it still means you end up with like one stack of assemblers and then potentially 50 stacks of beacons.
Several train loads of beacons.
And then, and the modules, 2 stacks. 2 stacks. Just 2. 2 will fill every single beacon. It's ridiculous. Can we please, oh devs, just 25? 50? I don't mind.
50. Make it consistent, unless there's a reason.
Well,
I had the same argument for modules as well, because remember, modules used to request, the default request was 10, even though they're stacked in 50.
Yeah, there was a few items that requested odd amounts, even though they're stacked in a higher amount, which was just stupid. But all those have been fixed now, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they have. The numbers of the other one that really bothered me was the equipment. It the power armor equipment. It was all over. Like some stacked in 50, some stacked in 5s, like the roboports. Some stacked in 20s. I think they're all 20s now. Nominally, between 5 and 20, I think they're still a little inconsistent.
I'm trying to think. Roboports are definitely 20. Legs are 20. Batteries are 20. Shields, no idea.
They are all 20.
They are all 20.
Yeah.
He's looking at it now.
Yeah, as I say, like they used to be just all over the place.
Yeah, that was, again, just smaller things that were really, really annoying. But yeah, beacons, please, bigger stack.
Stack in 50 like everything else.
I'm just happy with bigger than 10. Okay, 10 is a really annoying number. 25 would just look odd compared to everything else.
Yeah, it would. That's why I say 50. 50 would make the most sense.
Yeah, 50 for consistency. Let's just go with that. So,
unless there's a justification.
There's
for a different number.
There's only so many sphincters you can fit in a stack. Apart from that, no. Anyway,
let's not get into that too far.
On to fluid mixing. So, we have
favorite topic.
Yeah, fluid mixing. Take 9001 by R-Seating. So, R-Seating has a lot of things to say about fluid mixing right from square one, and I don't blame him because it's been a hot topic of his that's going around, and of his. I know he's been in some heated discussions over time with it as well. Yeah, it's so. For those that are reasonably new to the game, you can't mix fluids now. In the past, you could mix fluids, and when you mix fluids,
it was a free for all.
Yeah, and when you mix fluids, like there were many different ways to fix it, ranging from pulling up the whole pipe to just putting on a pump and pumping all the wrong liquid into a tank and then removing the pump and then removing the tank and the problem was solved, to going back to even further than that. You could put a steam engine straight onto a pipe and it just magically consumed whatever liquid was in the pipe. Didn't burn it, didn't create power, just consumed it, just vanished in thin air. Was a really good solution for getting rid of, oops, I stuffed up and put the wrong pipe on the wrong, connection, and I've got 2 fluids mixed together. So, then the devs added this whole you can't mix fluids thing, which sounded good in theory, and I remember doing the Friday Facts on it, and I was like, it sounds great. Have to see it in game. I don't see any problems with it, and then I've been playing with it, and I realized how much I hate it. Just for...
It's something that I argue depends on your playstyle.
Oh, look, I do remember making a case back then that, for those times when you want to go from crude oil to heavy oil to light oil into your flamethrower line, you need to be able to mix fluids because you just need to be able to. I've also seen some...
Yeah, the way the flame turrets, that was actually one oversight, was that if you wanted to change fuel in your flame turrets, you couldn't.
You couldn't, and the only way to do it... So in the past, because you couldn't have two different types of fluid in the same like section of pipe, I guess. So if you had a long straight bit of pipe and then a pump and then another long straight bit of pipe, if you had crude oil in the first, it'd get to the pump and then couldn't pump into the next section because that was still full of light oil. But as soon as that light oil got down to zero, the crude oil would go screaming through it and fill up your flamethrowers, which was great.
The other argument I had at the time was that the second input on basic oil processing had to be removed. You know how it had two oil inputs?
It had two oil inputs, and you had to have one of those had to become water afterwards. And I've seen new players stream Factorio since, and literally there was one particular guy, and I cannot remember his name, but he literally spent 5 hours trying to go from light oil, basic oil to advanced oil, and it just kept coming up with, can't mix fluids, and he'd spend 20 minutes with it, he'd get frustrated, he'd walk off, he'd come back, he'd spend another 20 minutes, half hour, he'd get frustrated again, he'd walk off, he'd come back. He just couldn't work it out for the life of him. And although chat tried to help, because of the delay and the everything, it got lost in translation. And
I remember seeing someone doing that, but they were one of those no hints type people. And so they were at it for days.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I suspect they were actually milking it.
Maybe, but like, it's one of those things that, like, I won't spend 5 hours getting frustrated by a game. I will just close the game and walk away.
Time's not that worthless. Only people who don't value their time do that kind of.
Well, look, if you're streaming a particular game, you might hit one of these brick wall points, and you might stick it out for longer because you have people viewing, and you want to overcome that problem, and potentially they might help or laugh at you at the same time. But in those circumstances, I will hang it out for longer. But 5 hours, no way. It's just hard no.
By that stage, you're either you get someone to tell you how to do it, or you close the game.
Yeah.
None of this just beating your head against the wall. Yeah. That's just stupidity right there.
Yeah.
You're either milking it for content, or content in air quote, or you're an idiot.
Yeah. So,
and if it's a streamer, it's more likely the former.
Yeah, it is. But anyway, so our settings take. He says, the original concept of preventing mixing prevention sounded great. Mixing fluids is virtually never designed, so let's stop this from happening. That's simple. This is the part when the movie stops and the narrator says, but it wasn't simple. It wasn't even close to simple. To keep things short, he'll just say, complexity compounded with more complexity. An entire game was built around the concept of fluids can't mix. Meant over a year and a half, there are still parts that can't be handled gracefully. And this is entirely true. There are situations where I've accidentally mixed fluids and I don't know how I've done it. And there are other situations where I intentionally try to mix fluids and I can't. So when the concept was first talked about, it seemed off. Mixing fluids is not designed. The solution is to full stop prevent it. But let's take that same solution and try and apply it somewhere else. Belts. Mixing belt contents is mostly not designed. Some people have gone full crazy and made setups around it, but that's another story. I do remember a couple of red circuit builds that have nothing sharing belts, which is just yes.
Special. Yeah, that's what I do.
Nothing shares belts with beacons. Yeah. I've seen tileable nothing shares belts beacons set up, and I'm just like, nope.
Yeah, it takes a bit of weaving and swaying and wibbly wobbling, bit of spot.
Nope. I've got to the point where I'm like, green circuits and plastic can have two separate belts if needs be, but the copper cable belt is so pointless. I'm sharing it with red circuits. It's just one less belt to worry about.
See, the trick is to direct insert the copper cable.
So you're doing direct insert, not a whole belt's worth. See, I've seen it with a whole belt's worth. Some people are going crazy about not mixing stuff on belts. That's another story. So what if the game tried to stop you from mixing belt contents? It sounds crazy to me. I agree. If we couldn't mix belt contents in Factorio, it'd be a different game.
It would be a much more bland game.
Yes, sort of a little bit like Satisfactory. Anyway, as it continues, but it happens. Belts get mixed, and it's not that big of a problem as fluid gets mixed. Why is that? Because there's a quick and easy fix to the problem. Just hoover up the items from the belt, and it's fixed. There's no quick and easy way to fix mixed fluids. You have to pull up the entire length of pipe to get it all out. Even if you don't mix the fluids, but just get the wrong one in a pipe, it's still a huge pain to fix. This goes back to, as I said originally, you could not pull up the whole length. You could just pump out the fluid into a tank, and you'd pipe.
You could do that, but depending on the length of the pipe, you could take an like the longer the pipe is, it takes exponentially longer to pump it.
It could take forever, and sometimes the quickest way was just to pull up the whole pipe and start again. By the same token, yeah, you could pump it out, or you used to be able to put a steam engine on there and just instantly consumed, and consuming it from memory was way faster.
Oh yeah, steam engines would delete any fluid you connected it to.
Yeah, it was a really good spot when, like, you've suddenly got too much heavy oil. You just hook up a pump and turn it on and off when you got too much heavy, and it goes into a steam engine and disappears.
That's the old speedrun strat.
Yeah.
It's funny is you could actually feed it through a boiler as well, get some power out of it.
Yes. You could actually boil the liquid before consuming it. It's funny to see boiled lube, but yes. But the other problem we had with the new edition was if a pipe was connected to a machine, and this is still going to be a problem, and there's no fluid in the pipe, the pipe's just marked as being connected to petroleum, heavy, whatever it happens to be, the whole pipe is tainted with that single item.
Yeah, and then the only way to deal with that is to delete the whole pipe and start it. Yes.
So, they went back to an old idea. We talked about when fluid mixing prevention conversation started, but was recently brought up again. We decided to give it a try. A simple fluid mixing prevention, just try and handle the most common cases, manually building things, and in more complex cases where mixing might happen, provide a quick and easy way to fix it. A flush button of all given fluid from the pipes. Which I like, but it does raise a question. I'm going to have a question instantly. What happens if I happen to have 10 tanks connected to that, and I'm speed running, and I don't particularly want to crack the heavy and the light? Can I just add half a dozen tanks, then click a magic button and make all the heavy and light disappear?
That's the thing that I was wondering as well, was that does it delete what's in tanks? Because tanks are technically pipes.
Tanks are technically a very, very large capacity pipe with 4 inputs, same as any normal pipe. So, yeah, I'm willing to bet it does, and I'm willing to bet there is going to be some speedrunner, and there's probably going to be those people that you look at their base and like this. Like, whole screen is petroleum tanks, and this whole screen is light oil tanks, and this whole screen is heavy oil tanks, and their petroleum tanks are empty, but the other ones are full. I'm willing to bet these people are going to come along and just go delete, and then just let the system run again. Yeah. So they have implemented the new simplified system. It should be ready for next release, along with the improved Sphencton beacons, and we can give it a try and let us know what we think. Sphenctons is the new answer. Okay, so yes, I'm interested how it works, and I'm really interested if I can force mix fluids for items like flamethrowers, because that was one of the things. Since that change happened, we had the whole season tournament 3 of biter battles where people are using flamethrowers all the time, and you'd see people have to put in a line of crude oil flamethrowers, then to put in a second line of light oil flamethrowers. Because light oil has a damage bonus that crude oil doesn't have. So they'd end up with 2 different rows of flamethrowers, which is twice the amount of flamethrowers, they're not cheap in all things considered. Just because you couldn't mix fluids at all. Not without the real risk of your main burning flame, your main burning pipe running dry, at which point then you can mix the fluids or change fluid types. But yeah, it was... Yeah.
Couldn't afford the time to fiddle about.
No.
Faff about.
No. So yeah, I like this idea. I still wish there was some magical way I could mix fluids. You know, even if it just comes down to, we can see this little GIF at the bottom that you clicked once to put down a pipe and it says connected fluid systems can't mix or something like that. If I could click a second time to go, yep, I realized, put it there anyway. I don't care. Just do as you're told, game. Yeah, connecting systems with different fluids. Just let me click a second time. Maybe click 5 times in a row. I don't care what it happens to be, you know. Hold down Control Shift and F5 at the same time to magically let me put the pipe in that mixes the fluids, because...
Alt F4? How about that for mixing fluids?
That still doesn't let me mix fluids. I've tried that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Although, speaking of mixing fluids, I did see, I think it was 2 weeks after the update came out, somebody had posted their oil design that now suddenly didn't work because all the fluids came out on one set of pipes.
So, it was one of those builds.
Yeah, they were.
Seen one of those in a while.
They were putting the heavy, the light, and the petroleum into the same pipe, and then using pumps to pull out the right liquid out of the main pipe. And I just found it fascinating. And their whole build was just dead. Their whole base was dead because it was all running on these magical systems, which, one, are really interesting. Two, you know, save a bunch of pipe and you can get more beacons around them a lot easier because you can share beacons between your oil refinery and your cracking because you don't have these silly petroleum pipes that stick out in the middle somewhere. Yeah.
I hadn't heard of that back in like version 12 or 13. Someone had a beacon build which everything was just jammed in one single pipe.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen one of those in a long time.
Yeah, they're few and far in between because they're a bit of a pain to set up. But once you get them running,
they're a massive pain.
Yeah, once you get them running, they work great. So yeah, with all that said, that's it for Friday Facts 351. We've got nothing else to add apart from you ruined my breakfast. Yes.
Yep, that's it.
All right, thank you guys for
everything
watching.
To the T.
Thank you guys for watching. Do hope you've enjoyed, and we'll see you guys next week. All right, bye.
See ya.